Welcome to part 2 of today's Torah study group. You're coming into the middle of our study session because Rabbi Vogel forgot to initiate the study recording. And so we will continue with our study together, and we hope that you enjoy part 2 of our together.
They missed the best part, though, right?
There we go.
Yeah, right. I want residuals for my recording.
Just like you're all on this, so I just want you to make sure you know. But hold on, I want you, because Eileen, what your direction and the way that you're going is very important. The rabbis have their own desired outcome of how to portray these two.
Yeah.
Jacob has to be. He is the patriarch, one of the patriarchs. He has to be elevated above Esau. Eileen, they have a great challenge in these early stories of Jacob. And
but
so
he's a liar, but he was a liar and a trickster.
But they want to understand.
So how do they make him better than?
Well, we're not going into that part of the story. By the way, they do that, Eileen.
Yeah.
But we're not going to go into that part. And Georgia, we're not going there. Okay. I know you know those answers sometimes. So Eileen, they look at that part of where he tricks his father out of the birthright and the blessing, and they try and rewrite that, if you will, historical revisionism as differently. Now they're trying, though, to show that even before we get there, that they have these boys a predispositional behavior and personality. That's what they're trying to get to. So I agree. You can absolutely disagree with that. Let's go. Lauren Schwartzbach, would you like to help us? Sarna
on Genesis.
Hey, hold on. Let me give instructions. Sorry. Sarna, contemporary also translation of the Torah text. He wrote a book on Genesis. And here's how he translates a mild man. Go ahead.
A mild man. Jacob is a quiet man and does not carry weapons.
Now, that's nowhere in the text.
Yeah.
Right? But what does that mean? So, Lauren, why do you think that Sarna adds that to the understanding of what a mild man means?
He's mild. He's quiet. He doesn't cause trouble. He's not going to be violent. He's not going to cause waves. He's a
man of peace, Lauren, yes. Right? So it's more than just understand here, right? The different interpretations, Bruce, we were talking about before, from mild to quiet to wholesome. Remember, those were the different interpretations. And now Sarna's trying to help us understand it, right? Steve, you like when they come in and others. What he's saying is it means that he's a peaceful person, right? In that way, he's not making trouble. That's why, Eileen, he is of a better personality, if you will. All right, let's go on to Rashi. Continue. Who is reading?
I was.
Okay, Lauren, continue.
Rashi on Genesis. Who stayed in the camp? The tent of Shem and the tent of Eber.
Right. Now, by the way, the words used, George, in the Hebrew, right, are the ohalim, right, the ohalot, the tents.
Yes.
So who are Shem and Ever?
Okay.
George, who are they?
They were supposed to have a yeshiva somewhere.
Yeah. Well, by the way,
yeshiva.
They had the yeshiva in their tent.
Yeah.
Right. And so
this is a midrash. It doesn't state it.
Of course. So Eileen, when it says he stayed in the camp, it's not because he was a homebody. It's not because he wasn't a man of adventure. It's because he was studying Torah, which, as you would say, hasn't been given yet. In fact, I forget whether it's in here because I wanted to add some additional stuff from Rashi. But anybody know the midrash about when Rivka was pregnant with Jacob and Esau? Yeah. Hold on, besides George, anybody? Jack, do you know this one, midrash?
Oh, yeah, I know it.
Jack, do you know this one or no?
I think so.
You want to share? Or
just
no?
That they were like fighting inside of her or something? Yeah.
Right. So as she walked through, whenever she went walking, in utero, when she walked by the tent of Eber and Shem in terms of the study, Jacob would make motions like, I want to go there. When she passed a place of idolatry, Esau would be the one who would start moving around and go and as if he wanted to go there. Yeah. So even, by the way, Eileen, not only postpartum are they right in personality, but in utero they have personalities. Okay, Jack, go ahead.
I mean, what I'm struck by this is this clear intent by the commentators and the rabbis to react and retcon, if you will, the problem that's posed by the text, which is that Esau basically gets screwed out of his birthright, and yet we're the children of Jacob, so we've got to make Esau really bad.
Correct. So you came out a little bit late. So we talked about, I said, that's the great challenge of this text, is that Jacob is the patriarch. He's the one elevated, and yet the text does not portray him. Eileen wants to stay to the true version of the text, and I don't disagree with her, right, Eileen? I do. I agree with you that, and Esau, and Jack, I opened the session by saying, what did Esau do that was wrong?
Didn't do anything.
Nothing. Now I will do, it's not in these texts, but I'm going to give you something here. Rashi. It was so he has some great midrashim here. And this was, George, it's what you started about in terms of the beginning, Yigadlu. So what does that mean? And they grew, and Esau was, so long as they were young, they could not be distinguished by what they did, and no one paid much attention to their characters. But when they reached the age of 13, one went his way to the house of learning, and the other went his way to the idolatrous temples. So again, which is interesting, by the way, as children, Eileen, right, they weren't so different. Because, by the way, and I want you to think the importance, like, only when you become an age of adult are you responsible for your actions. So here, they were very similar until age 13. And at bar mitzvah, as if, Eileen, we already knew that 13 was bar mitzvah age in that time. All right, they read back. Okay, next, a cunning hunter. Literally understanding hunting, understanding how to entrap and deceive his father with his mouth. He would ask him, Father, how should salt and straw be tithed? We saw that Genesis Rabbah, although he knew full well that there was no subject to the law of tithe. Consequently, his father believed him to be very punctilious in observing the divine ordinances. All right. This is a great one. Eileen, you're going to love this one. A man of the field, right? Explain literally, not in midrashic manner, a man without regular occupation, hunting beasts and birds with his bow.
So what was his brother's occupation? He was just sitting around in a tent doing nothing.
He was, I think in this interpretation, I think he's a farmer. I think he by occupation, but he has
Jacob is a
Jacob.
farmer?
But in this one, because he has no occupation, he's out hunting.
That's Esau. But what is Jacob doing?
Okay, but I right. The other part of it is that he is right one who tills the soil, and that he's taking care of. So it's a different understanding. Or a herdsman is another midrash as well. Okay, so there's different ways of answering that question. What else is okay? There's nothing else in there that I want to look over. All right, let's go now to parental relationship and children then, based on these models. Okay, let's go in here and Judy, Judy, did you read yet? No, would you like? Oh, you're eating though. So no, keep eating. No. You just keep eating. I want you to enjoy that. Nancy, you haven't read.
Okay, first of all, when he was something about tithing the salt, was that to preserve the meat that he killed?
It was just, he was asking a question that he knew the answer, like, why, how do we tithe salt and straw? The answer is, dear, you don't tithe those things. Boy, you are so punctilious. You are so, machmir and observant about tithing, that you think about tithing things you don't need to. That's all it was about.
I didn't understand that.
I know. That's why it's a little bit, it was confusing. Sorry. All right, go ahead.
Okay, Sforno on Genesis. You have to do the Hebrew. Also Esau, not only Yaakov, even though he must have been aware that Esau was far less perfect than Yaakov.
All right, so remember, this is the part, he loved Isaac. Isaac loved Esau. They want to put in the word also Esau, Sforno. Why?
Okay.
Because to say he also loved Jacob. Don't think that he didn't love Jacob, but he also loved Esau. Even though he saw, did you finish the whole thing there?
Just that
Oh,
one.
right, yeah. Even though he saw Esau was far less perfect than Yaakov. So, by the way, do you think that parents show preferential treatment to one kid over another sometimes?
Yes,
Yes.
Look at the parents.
absolutely.
You'd never say this to your kids, would you, though?
Because they pick up on it. They know.
Isn't that
They-
interesting?
But they do know. The kids pick up on it right away.
Good. I didn't. So
You know, I had a friend that said, you know, she loved her kids. She loved both of her kids, but she loved them differently. Rather than
course.
saying when she favored one over the other.
Yeah, I think lots of parents do, but look, I have 4 kids, and on a weekly basis, the Shabbat dinner table, they would put out the number like that they fell in terms of my affections. And so like, they go like, oh no, she's number 1 for sure. He's number 2. We're not sure who's number 3. And I go, look, for this week, you might be right. I don't know. But here's where they're trying to, Judy, I want to keep going if it's okay, because I want to make sure everything is that they're making a point here that Isaac also loved Jacob and he loved Esau. And why does it make a point then that he loved Esau, Eileen? Because he, even with his imperfections, he loved him. Right? So that's what he's trying to go. He's not perfect, and that's what, but he loved him nevertheless. Or maybe because of those imperfections. So they're trying to, even Jack, nuance these characters of the parents towards the children, because they don't want to see them as being showing favoritism. Eileen, that's not a patriarchal thing to do, is it?
A lot of it is, well, Jacob is a patriarch, and what he did wasn't.
Okay, but that's why they try and understand them in a different way. All right.
Why would he say far less perfect than Yaakov? I mean, Yaakov is a
Is
lot of
sitting
things. And he's not perfect. I mean, come on.
Remember, this is before everything took place, right? The next narrative, Jack, we haven't had him tricking anybody yet. By the way, after this description is the first episode of where he tricks Esau. Esau tricks Jacob out of the birthright. And then later, of course, in the narrative is tricking his father out of the blessing part. So that hasn't happened yet. Even at this point, Jack, we're right. The rabbis are trying to completely reinterpret this. Anyway, let's keep going. Rabbi Isaiah Horowitz. I found out the commentators that Rabbi Pelkowitz put together here. So interesting, because beginning with Rabbi Horowitz here, they all come from Prague. And I have no idea why he did that. They all come from about the same time. And as I tried to look at the commentators he chose, they were all mystics. And I'm not sure whether that influenced their interpretation or not. This one, Isaiah Horowitz, he ended up born in where is he? But born in Prague, grew in Prague, but moved with the mystics to Sfat and was buried there. Isn't that interesting? So he's part of those of you who know the Chadodi and all those, like the mystics tradition in Sfat. All right, let's go on. I'm going to give you one more, Nancy.
Okay, Isaac favored Esau because he had a taste for game, but Rebekah favored Jacob.
Keep going.
Okay, Isaac's love was a love dependent on an external factor.
Hold on. Kid Said Bipiv, because the taste of the game in his mouth. Go ahead.
Of such a love, we are told, once the external factor disappears, the love disappears as well. Rebekah, on the other hand, loved Jacob without an external factor being the cause of her love. Such love remains forever. This is why the Torah uses the form
Ohevet, where remember, that's why it says love. Remember, someone pointed out before, but it doesn't say earlier about love. Only the next part. Go ahead.
To describe her love, which is in the present continuous tense to signify that Rebekah's love for Jacob was an eternal one.
So what is this saying about the difference between the love of the love of Isaac and the love of Rebekah? By the way, this is modern psychology.
They were grummy parents.
No. About the difference between a father's love. This is stereotypical, kind of psychology, from, 60s and 70s for sure. What's the difference between a mother's love and a father's love, according to the psychological? No, you guys know this, Rob.
The father loves loves one child because of what he does, whereas the mother loves the child for who he is.
All right, I'm gonna put it in terms that I knew and understood. A father's love is conditional. A mother's love is unconditional. Now, I'm not saying that's always, but very often, wasn't that right? It was the father figure, the disciplinarian, the one who set standards in terms of expectations. And it was the mother who, no matter what they did, would always, right? It was unconditional love. That's psychology, standard psychology from the 60s and 70s for sure. Why are they and think about this, that this is being, 500 years ago. They're already talking about this. How does this help us understand then this story? Lauren.
Well, when you were reading that he grew to love him, I'm thinking, why did he grow to love him? Why didn't he love him right from the beginning? What parent doesn't love their child right from the beginning? And it was like the things that he did that he loved, not necessarily who he was. Where her mother is going to defend her baby cubs no matter what, and that's what I understood. I right when we read that, it's like he grew to love him. To love him. Why wouldn't he love him the minute he saw him at birth? Where a mother loves her baby the minute they put that baby in her arms.
That's fascinating. So, by the way, I think Eileen, it's to understand and again, I can't figure out why this is Prague, because Prague was not the center of modern psychoanalysis, analysis in the 16th century. But Eileen, trying to understand it from the psychological standpoint. Right? Understand the text is that Isaac was a typical kind of father who had conditional love, and Rebekah was the kind of mother who had the unconditional love, and that's why that's why they're explained and portrayed in this way.
But if you read the next one,
yes,
it's different.
All right, so it's a different commentator. Yes. We'll get to that. Okay,
that one makes more sense.
Okay, so I'm gonna let you read that in a moment, then, if you like that. But Judy, go ahead.
I don't have to read it, but
Judy, go ahead.
Sometimes a mother doesn't love, but nurtures a kid who's more needy, and it sounds like Esau went out and did his thing and took care of everybody, and maybe Jacob needed more love or something like that.
That is so beautiful, Judy, from a mother's perspective, right? Like the mother, if you have a kid who just excels in everything, right? And Esau, right? He's the athlete. He's the one who goes out and does everything, and his brother's feeling inferior. He's not feeling quite, in terms of being accepted. And the mother's gonna stick up for that child and gonna help him, right, to feel loved. I love that. It's a wonderful way to understand it.
But also as twins, that I'm a twin, and that is such a unique relationship, not just with the two siblings, but with the parents and the siblings, and how they react to them and treat them and compare them to each other and all that stuff.
Yeah. And by the way, when there's twins, it's really hard, clearly when they're not identical, right? And where one really is just superior in terms of looks and athletics, sometimes in intelligence, like all kinds of things, right? And how's the other one supposed to feel?
Also, you have to get your kids what I got mine. I got all my kids a mug that says I'm mom's favorite.
I love that. I love that. All right, let's keep going then. Jack, you want to read the Kli Yakar? And again, Kli Yakar was one of those who was from Prague. So go ahead.
Isaac favored Esau because he had a taste for game. When his father asked him, "What do you do in the field all day?" he would apologize, saying, "It takes me all day to hunt animals and bring meat to my father's mouth." Since his mother rarely saw him, she did not love him, only Jacob, because he spent his time with her, and she poured all her affection upon him.
All right. So that, again, trying to understand all of these commentators. Eileen, when you see these commentators responding to something, it's because they have a question and they're bothered by something. That's what I want you to understand, all of you. When we study Torah, the rabbis don't bother to comment on things that don't bother them. Although occasionally, Jack, if you studied, and George to you as well, probably, sometimes when the rabbis actually don't have an answer, they'll just ignore it. Like they're gonna it's so troubling, Jack, right? Like you expect, why aren't you asking that question? And then they just there's nothing because they absolutely have no idea what to do with it. And they're gonna likely stay away from it.
I'm struck by this, that throughout all of this, that there's a conception of kind of masculinity here.
Yeah.
That ends up kind of permeating concepts of Jewish masculinity for millennia, where a rejection of kind of the traditional Clint Eastwood masculine person of Esau, and that Jacob, who's softer, for a better word, is held up as the ideal. And I just think that when you look at this consistent kind of negative view of the man's man, so to speak, just continues a thread throughout Jewish history until the state of Israel, basically, and Zionism.
Jack, I'm not even going to respond because that's this whole thesis, right? You just opened up in terms of portraying something and the view of men in general, and especially in a Jewish tradition that actually elevated intellect above brute strength. Which is why, by the way,
and I have to give credit to my son here, because my son Avi, because his college history thesis was about conceptions of masculinity with regard to the Jewish Defense League.
Wow.
And how that changed. Their big thing was that they had people with bats wearing kippot, and how they merged this idea of Jewish masculinity being something other than just sitting in the shiva, but also being very defense oriented.
Yeah, I don't want to go with George and Sam with apologies. I want to finish up, and I have to run out to do this funeral. But early on, there certainly is pre-destruction of the temple, Jack. Right, brute strength and fight clearly is part of that Jewish Talmudic image, right? There's no question about that. And all the more so, right, that you brought intellect into that image. Later on, Pirkei Avot, of course, right? Ezehu Gibor, who is the warrior, Hakovesh Yitzro, the one who is able to conquer his desire. Right? So they're trying to say, who is a warrior? The one who can conquer the baseness and the desire to act, contrary to goodness of society. And by the way, stays away from illicit, relations. Be like all of that desire. When you can overcome it, that's what a hero is. So it's interesting, Jack. The rabbis are even trying to understand what does that mean to be a hero in that language. Let's do one, and I apologize. I wish we had more time. I'm just checking the Google Maps in terms of Jack. You didn't hear I have a funeral at 2:00. So I'm gonna run out. But we did Kli Yakar. Let's do Rabbi Naphtali. Do we want to do Rabbi Alter? Let me see. Do we have we don't have to do this. Here's what we're going to do then. Hold on, I'm going to take this off because this will be actually more important. what is our takeaway here in terms of trying to understand the personalities of Esau and Jacob and the love, right, of the parents and how they're portrayed? Stan, give it a shot.
Well, I think that the rabbis not only asked questions because they didn't understand, but because they had an agenda to start out with. And I think all these stories that we read in the Torah are stories about emotions and intent, as well as about things that actually happen. And everything that we read with emotion or intent has an agenda and is is open to interpretation. We don't know. And that's why we're here.
Stan, I don't disagree with you, but I want to just clarify what I intended to say if it wasn't clear is that, and it's not that they had questions. Sometimes it comes out of a question, but very often it comes out of them being troubled by the text. They are troubled by this portrayal. They're troubled by what Jacob does, right? And so they have to, you're right, there's an agenda, but it comes from the fact that they are bothered by the story itself. So thank you, though. I want to thank you. Judy, what are we going to do with this?
Well, I just wonder now that there are a lot of female rabbis, if they are not bothered, they're bothered by different things than the male rabbis. And
look, absolutely. In fact, there's a feminist interpretation of the Torah, that's written by women. And by the way, that's been the great blessing of having women in the rabbinate. Look, Jack knows. Jack was part of the search committee, the search committee that brought the first, female rabbi to Aliyah at that time. And even then, right, Jack was not easy for people to see. And quickly, our people saw, and even on the committee, that, not only was it not an obstacle having a woman as a rabbi, but actually it was a blessing, and they brought something different to the rabbinate. So absolutely. Any final thoughts from anybody before I give you mine? And in terms of, Esau, Jacob,
thinking, was it nurture? Was it nature? Were they nurtured to be the way they were? Were they born the way they were? Was the way they were treated by their parents make them the way they were? I mean, that's what I took out of it,
And I love it, because let me tie it together, because that's really what I was going to get to, Lauren, is that, again, as I say in general, like the book of Genesis, I believe, is really the first book of psychology. Mm-hmm. It's trying to understand the nature of the human being. It's trying to understand relationships, and it's trying to understand social structure, right? And the dynamics of society. And they're looking at, are you born a certain way or not? And that's why, Judy, it's interesting that they're twins. Right? What does it mean to be a different person? And how do you understand it? And I think the rabbis are way ahead of most of those understandings of children and of the relationship of child and parent. Right? And it's complicated. We often say, what are the two commands towards parents of a child? They're commanded to do two things for a parent. What are they?
Honor them.
You shall honor, that's one. And what's the second one?
Really don't kill them.
No,
Or
you
vice
shall.
versa.
What's the other one? You're supposed to fear them.
You're supposed to fear your parents? Ooh.
Yeah.
Now, by the way, the rabbis say that it means awe. And by the way, if you look at it, when it says kaved avicha v'timecha, father comes first. When it comes to yira, fear, mother comes first, and then father. They reverse the order. Right? But they're trying to. But why aren't we commanded to love a parent? You're commanded to love a stranger. You're commanded to love your neighbor. Commanded to love God, but not your parents.
Too hard.
So, by the way, George, it's a complicated relationship.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so what does the Torah focus on, the rabbis? How you act towards them.
Yeah.
I always tell my kid, we talk in general, people, like, the first 18 years is a parent raising the kid. The rest of the kid's life is them going to therapy to try and understand what that was. Right? We're always playing that out, and I love it, but it's complicated. I think it's born in this text. I think, Eileen, we're supposed to be troubled by this text, and to know that these relationships and people and parental and child relationships are really complicated. Anyway, that's our Torah for today, and it's a pleasure to see you all. All right.
Thank you.
Shalom.
Good holiday, everybody.
Yeah. have a
Everybody,
wo-
good Turkey Day.
Yeah, we're not on next Thursday, right? Because of Thanksgiving,
Right.
obviously. So enjoy your turkey and